For reaction to all of this, we turn to this evening's political panel. Jim Kessler is with us, Executive Vice President for Policy at Third Way, our Democratic strategist, alongside Republican strategist Annalise Keller, partner at Seven Letter. Great to have both of you with us, and welcome to the conversation. Jim, you spent enough years in the Senate to appreciate what's happening right now. We've got a lot of questions about the reconciliation debate, but the stablecoin bill is actually passing with Democrats and Republicans. How did this slip through as the bipartisan cause of this new Congress?
It's because it will not change a single American's vote come 2026 or 2028. This is one of those things that pass that are important, but don't really have a political benefit for so much for either side. Like, those things can get done, and this is one of those things.
Mm-hmm. So is that what we should expect in the Congress this year? Things getting passed that, like you just said, likely won't affect much?
I don't think so. I think this reconciliation bill is going to continue to move through the Senate. And I know there's a lot of speculation about timing. Some news today that I found especially notable on timing. It seems like that it's getting pushed a little bit further down the line. I think they were initially hoping that a July 4th deadline was what they're going to be getting, and I think it's going to be closer to the end of July. But yeah, it's going to change a lot, but also it's not going to change that much. Maybe something a little bit underappreciated is this reconciliation package. It is preventing a massive tax increase on the American people, but they're already experiencing those tax cuts. So it's not going to be, quite a big change for all Americans that maybe they're talking about.
Well, we just heard from Senator Ron Johnson, who says he's a no. Jim Kessler, you've heard this before. There might be a path to yes, but he told us that he's got enough colleagues who are also prepared to vote no to sink this. I still get back to the central question. Maybe you both want to swing at this. Is there a Republican in the Senate who's ready to vote for a tax hike? That's the equivalent here, right?
Yeah, look, I think there are two types of legislators in the Senate and the House on the Republican side for the reconciliation bill. Those that are like, we're going to vote for this, don't worry about me. And then there are the leverage players. Like, I want to be as difficult as possible, and I want to extract what I want out of there. There are a lot of leverage players right now. Now, that can bring down a bill because it can make it more unpopular, and some people's win is somebody else's loss. I think ultimately, in the end, this bill's going to pass. We're going to increase the deficit by $3 trillion. Congratulations, it's a debt bomb.
I mean, I think people like Rand Paul, I don't think he is gettable in the Senate to the point of the debt limit. I think he's never voted for a debt limit, and this bill includes a debt limit increase, which the Republicans put in there, and, I think that will stay in there. So, I mean, to your point, I think he's not gettable.
Rand Paul's a safe no, though, right? Yeah. He's the Tom Massey of the Senate. It's others we're working on. So what does Ron Johnson get for this stonewalling?
I think I actually think he got a little bit of leverage with the Trump-Elon fight. I kind of think before that happened, he was going to get sidelined, and there were going to probably not be as many meaningful changes to things like SALT and maybe even to Medicaid.
One thing Ron Johnson did also say today is he flat out said, hey, this is an artificial deadline we're working on. The House has obviously said July 4th, but he flat out said that. So obviously this is going to go longer.
Definitely. I absolutely think it's going to take through the end of July. I think it was always kind of a hopeful deadline. And, J.D. Vance and Dr. Oz were in the Senate today. They were having lunch with senators. Obviously, President Trump is occupied, otherwise occupied with what's going on in the Middle East right now. So he sent them in to kind of hopefully get this wrapped up. And I mean, I do think that it's going to go through July, but yeah, it's not, the only big pressing deadline is the debt limit. So until we hit that, we're okay on timing. That's the only deadline we have here.
You mentioned geopolitics, the situation involving Israel and Iran. I'd like to ask you both about this, not only through the guise of Capitol Hill, but this afternoon we did hear from Senate Majority Leader John Thune, who talked about the president's decision when deciding how to handle this ongoing escalation. Here's what he said.
I think the president is perfectly within his authority in the steps that he has taken. Clearly, if this thing were to extend for some period of time, there could be a more fulsome discussion about what the role of Congress should be and whether or not we need to take action. But I think right now, let's hope and pray for the best outcome, the best solution. And in my view, that would be Iran coming to the negotiating table and agreeing to end their nuclear program.
Jim Kessler, you've been through a couple of these with big debates over authorizing the use of force. We've asked a few lawmakers about this today. This president clearly is going to be in the clear for 30 to 60 days, but this could drag on longer. It could become much wider. When will lawmakers say, enough, we need to have a say in this?
When the president said today, I want unconditional surrender, that means boots on the ground. I mean, that means occupying a country. Now,
to be clear, no one has said that, though.
No, the president today said, I want unconditional surrender.
But we keep hearing never boots on the ground.
Right, but that's what that means. Like, you surrender to an army. So we have to find out actually what the president really means. Now, the truth is, the first 6 months of the Trump presidency, the louder he talks, the softer the action is, generally. But yes, the president would be able to do a targeted military strike on Iran under his authority, for sure.
Ron Johnson, though, today saying he completely supports what the president's doing and what the president decides to do. Do you think that will follow with the rest of his party? Or do you think he'll have a harder time getting everyone on board?
There are a few grumblings among the Republican Party, I think, right now. For the most part, they're giving President Trump leeway, but I do think, depending on how, his measured approach has been helpful, but there have been those like the Tucker Carlson, some of the folks who are pushing the America First agenda, who see the concern that if Donald Trump continues to engage in the region, that this would be, something that they would have a hard time supporting. And I think Trump himself is a little bit conflicted, frankly. I think he wants to be a peacemaker. I think he wanted to deal with Iran. I don't think he, really wants to. I don't think he wants to put boots on the ground. I don't think that's what he wants.
Deeply conflicted, isn't it? We hear from Tucker Carlson. The president's calling him out on Truth Social. I mentioned Tom Massey already. Marjorie Taylor Greene, J.D. Vance with a long missive today to have faith in the president, even though we heard no new wars repeatedly over the course of this campaign. As a Republican, do you worry about that mission creep when it comes to America First?
As a Republican, I think most Republicans, myself included, are going to give him some leeway. I think he's been pretty measured with his response, and I think until there is something that, really if this does drag on, depending on what this looks like in the coming weeks, I think people are going to be willing to give him that space. But, J.D. Vance coming out and others coming out talking about what Donald Trump is saying and sort of giving him that cover does signal to me that there are concerns and that he's hearing things from those MAGA folks in the party. I mean, and they're saying them publicly. Something to watch.
Jim Kessler and Annalise Keller, thank you so much for being with us. We really appreciate having both of you here today.